Hello everyone, this is Sam of Historiansplaining. A historian tells you why everything you know is wrong. Happy Halloween, and since it is Halloween, it's the last day of the month. And my patrons will know that this year I've made it my habit to thank patrons at the end of each month. And I haven't done that yet since this month I posted another video on Red, White, and Royal Blue discussing the politics, the political ideology, the Democratic Party. And then on Tuesday night, I made a live appearance on The Katie Halper Show and discussed globalisms, past, present, and future. As is my wont, I went a long time. You can see most of it still at the YouTube link. It's been posted on YouTube. You can follow the link. I'll put it in the description here. But some of it she saved, and also Katie mentioned that we might do a further follow-up to discuss all of the voluminous material and incidents and ideas that I put forward in that conversation. But now, since it is the last of the month and it is Halloween, I figured I would make a post to update and say thank you to patrons. Also to remind patrons that I posted a poll about the subject of the next installment of Doorways in Time. What should be the archaeological discovery that will be the subject of the next installment? And I've also gotten books and started researching for a lecture on West and Central Africa in the early modern period, in those centuries leading up to colonization of America. So that I expect will be the last one before I then start talking about important colonies, firstly New Mexico. So, I already had a long discussion before about Florida. I won't go back into that, but I'll go to the next Spanish colony that appeared in North America north of the Rio Grande, which was New Mexico. So if you're a patron, then please go to that previous post from a week or so ago where I have that poll. I believe it's still open till tomorrow evening, Saturday evening, November 1st. And, if it's a tie, then I'll have to refer it to the general public on Twitter, and who knows what happens then. So please go back, and you might be the tie-breaking vote. But also, since I'm making this recording as a message to patrons, I figured that perhaps again I could go back and do a reading. I've had poems in mind, particularly by Robert Lowell, that maybe we'll get to when we start talking about the American colonies. I've mentioned that before, but maybe I'll, leave that kind of on the back burner again. And since it's Halloween, I figured I could read some poems dealing with ghosts and hauntings. Personally, I love ghost stories. I don't know enough of them off the top of my head, but I always find them interesting and alluring. And I've never seen a ghost myself, but probably a lot of people who study history, a lot of historians would say you don't have to see a ghost with your own eyes in order to believe in them. Since to some degree the whole discipline of history is always dealing with ghosts, in a sense. And also I would say poetry. Poems are also ghosts, you could say. They are spirit, breath, right? That's what spirit means at root. They're sort of memories, presences, apparitions that are captured in some way that they last and continue to reappear and relive. But without getting any further into metaphysics, I figured I would read a few poems. The first one is by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who was sort of the premier respected and respectable poet of America in the 19th century. He was born and raised in Maine to a Yankee Protestant respectable family. He was a national poet. He wrote on national myths like Paul Revere and Evangeline. But I think, as you'll see, the Yankee Protestant imagination in the 19th century was shot through both with Romanticism and with spiritualism, and a sort of growing fascination with the supernatural, the Gothic, and literal ghosts and spirits. So I'll read this poem that's just called Haunted Houses, which maybe you'll see sort of resonates with the whole field and discipline of history. But this is Haunted Houses by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. All houses wherein men have lived and died are haunted houses. Through the open doors the harmless phantoms on their errands glide, with feet that make no sound upon the floors. We meet them at the doorway, on the stair, Along the passages they come and go, impalpable impressions on the air, a sense of something moving to and fro. There are more guests at table than the hosts invited. The illuminated hall is thronged with quiet, inoffensive ghosts, as silent as the pictures on the wall. The stranger at my fireside cannot see the forms I see, nor hear the sounds I hear. He but perceives what is, while unto me all that has been is visible and clear. We have no title deeds to house or lands. Owners and occupants of earlier dates, from graves forgotten, stretch their dusty hands, and hold in mortmain still their old estates. The spirit world around this world of sense floats like an atmosphere, and everywhere wafts through these earthly mists and vapors dense a vital breath of more ethereal air. Our little lives are kept in equipoise by opposite attractions and desires, the struggle of the instinct that enjoys, and the more noble instinct that aspires. These perturbations, this perpetual jar of earthly wants and aspirations high, come from the influence of an unseen star, an undiscovered planet in our sky. And as the moon from some dark gate of cloud throws o'er the sea a floating bridge of light, across whose trembling planks our fancies crowd into the realm of mystery and night, so from this world of spirits there descends a bridge of light, connecting it with this, o'er whose unsteady floor, that sways and bends, wander our thoughts above the dark abyss. So this next poem is by another American poet, a modern poet, Lola Haskins, who lives at least partly in northern Florida. And I think for me it sort of resonated with that whole subtropical world of Florida that I became fascinated with years ago and made a series of lectures about a couple years ago. As you'll see, it's in more contemporary style free verse. And it's in the voice, I shouldn't give away too much, but it's in the voice of a person who has an encounter by a river. And you'll see if you study folklore or history, really, you'll find there are endless stories about the encountering of ghosts and spirits by water, especially of those who have drowned, sailors who've drowned at sea or people who have drowned in ponds and lakes. So this, I think, is in that sort of tradition. So this is Patsy Sees a Ghost by Lola Haskins. I'm crossing the river where it narrows, carefully, it being Sunday, and I'm past the root end of the log when I look up, and there's a haunt sitting on the blossom end. I can see trumpet vine and blackberries through her white dress. Gnats hang in the air. The river runs red-brown and deep. The haunt sings, and it's my music, the blood song of my heart and bones and my skull dancing in the road. And Chloe, she knows my name. She says, "Oh, Patsy, take care, or you will surely fall and the thick river will pull you too to shroudy weeds, and you'll be gone, gone as the moment you looked up and saw the trumpet vine and berries hot and ready through my white dress. Gone as all the years since I died and waited here for you." And this last one is called Spirit Birds by another American poet, Stanley Plumly, who, from what I saw, was born and raised in Ohio but taught as a professor in Maryland. And this one, Spirit Birds, it's, you could say, in a sense, indirectly about ghosts. I think you can see it resonates in certain ways with the past two poems that I read. It's also, I think, about archival research and what you find in old papers and images. And you'll hear at one point in this poem a reference to gray Eastern and gold Western. And I was kind of confused and thrown off, so I started searching, what does that mean? And I think it's a reference to a type of birds, particularly kingbirds, which are a variety of birds that have different species. The Eastern has a more sort of light gray underbelly, and the Western has a yellowish gold underbelly. So I think that might be what he's alluding to in that line. But without giving any more away, this is Spirit Birds by Stanley Plumly. The spirit world, the negative of this one, Soft outlines of soft whites against soft darks, someone crossing Broadway at Cathedral, walking toward the god taking the picture, but now inside the camera, suddenly still. Or the spirit world, the detail through the window, manifest if stared at long enough, the shapes of this or that, the lights left on, the lights turned off, the spirits under arcs of sycamores, the gray gold mists of migratory birds and spotted leaves recognize. Autumnal evening chill, knife edges of the avenues, wind kicking up newspaper off the street, those ghost peripheral moments you catch yourself beside yourself going down a stair or through a door. The spirit world surprising, those birds, for instance, bursting from the trees and turning into shadow, then nothing, like spirit birds called back to life from memory or a book. Those shadows in my hands I held, surprised. I found them interspersed among the posthumous pages of a friend, some hundreds of saved poems, dun sparrows and a few lyrical wrens in photocopied profile perched in air, focused on an abstract, abrupt edge. Blurred, their natural color bled, they'd passed from one world to another. The poems, too, sung in the twilight middle of the night, loved, half-typed, half-written over, flawed, images of images. He'd kept them to forget them, and every 20 pages, in Xerox ash and frost, gray eastern, gold western, ranging across borders. So finally, thank you to my patrons, and I'd like to specifically thank my current active patrons who originally signed up in the month of November in whatever year over these past several years. So thank you to Ichiba, Anna Wisnitskaya, Will Irby, Chloe Vaughn, Mop, Bill Kirkpatrick, David Hines, Nina Amenta, Steyr Hofhaus, Megan R., Unifaros, Cedric Asse Limessing, Johannes Rees, Anthony Metrulas, Blaze Bradley, John Mosca, Kadia, Hank Harris, Sean Cowger, Matthew Ross, Nancy Ikeda, Caleb Beard, Eleni Cisneros, Harold Torrance, Santeri Twovila, Rania Rampersad, Galen Moser, and Theo's grandma. Thank you, and happy Halloween.